Good evening and welcome to the Darknight Conspiracies. This is episode 1, titled Family or Foe. I look around, see things on social media, TV, personal experience. We're seeing something we haven't seen in decades, where friends are turning against friends and families turning against family, whether it be for their religious beliefs, mostly political beliefs. What is causing this? Well, let's go back, as I will say in numerous upcoming videos. Let's go back to the day where I call the DS, and most people will know what I'm talking about. Their plan was to destroy the family, and we started to see it in the 70s. I remember growing up as a child, we would hear that frightful phrase from our mothers: wait till your father gets home. There was even a 70s cartoon primetime show on Friday nights called that same thing: wait till your father gets home. And I can tell you, as a child, we dreaded that because we knew what was to come. That was called discipline. That was called teaching respect. That was called teaching right from wrong. We're not seeing that in this day and age. All you got to do is look at Portland, Chicago, Seattle, New York. Nobody cares about right and wrong anymore. Everybody feels they're right and you're wrong, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on. It's that simple. There's no more debate. Then I remember a Happy Days episode where Marion threw a fit. She got tired of taking care of the husband and the kids. She wanted a better life. She wanted more purpose in her life. You know, many of these family shows back then were missing one thing: they didn't go to church on Sundays. They didn't talk about church at all. They didn't talk about faith at all. That was the stepping stone to what we're seeing now. Soon, Nixon took us off the gold standard. What happened? Well, inflation started, unemployment rose to all time highs. It was tough for a family to get by. Ultimately, the wife had to go to work. So they entrusted their kids to go to school, which back in the day, the teachers were supposed to be the parents back then, to guide the children, educate them, do the job of the parents, so to speak. Well, that has drastically changed over the years because we've seen the indoctrination of the school college system where they don't teach civics, don't teach economics, don't teach home ec. And we're seeing the fruits of those labors. You know, back in the day, daughters learned how to cook from their mothers and their grandmothers. I can tell you, growing up through my 20s, 30s, and 40s, I've yet to meet a woman that can cook. When I speak to most of them, no, never learned any of that stuff. This is where we have fallen. Those old traditions have suddenly gone. Now, with social media and, of course, all this political hotbed that's going on, now we're seeing families attack families, brothers against brothers, sisters against sisters, go down the whole gambit. And again, whether it's for a religious view or a political view, something's wrong here. We've lost our way. And I'll go back to the old phrase we heard when we were kids, wait till your father gets home. You know, there's one phrase we haven't heard yet. Wait till God gets home. I don't think he's going to be very pleased with many of us. In a lot of ways, we are responsible for the situation this country's in. For years, we sat back and let these politicians have their way. We let them vote in Roe versus Wade. We let them do a lot of things that took away our rights. But we were too busy working two jobs or each parent working. We were too busy to concern ourselves with what was going on in the everyday world. So we'd come home, turn on the fake news, and rely on them for our news. Well, times have changed. We now have the internet for that. Perfect example, watch a news show Friday night. A pundit came on and said Trump inherited the Obama Biden economy. It was booming. Unemployment was at 4%. Now, we all know that's a lie because all you got to do is go on the government website and look up what those statistics were at that time. The economy wasn't booming. It didn't boom for 8 years under Obama. Unemployment was in double digits when Trump took it over. But he built it up. Everybody got jobs. And I'll tell you what happened. All businesses, the minute Donald Trump got elected to be president, they knew it was game on. They started hiring people. They knew Donald Trump was going to protect them. And he did. He did more in 3.5 years than any other president in this history. But now, the deep state, the left, we're in a battle. And I call this the spiritual battle of good versus evil. This is why families are now being torn apart. People are getting divorced over whether or not who you support. This is not what God intended for this country. We listen to each candidate say what's on the ballot. Neither one mentioned what's really on the ballot: our souls and the fate of this country. That's what's on the ballot, is our souls and faith. Because God is coming home and he's not going to be happy. I believe firmly this November 2020 election. This is the point in the Bible where God says you have to choose between good versus evil. And then he turns his back. So now I'll revert to some biblical passages. Luke 12:53. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. Well, aside from the in-law stuff, I'm sorry, that's been going on for generations. In-laws never like each other. That's just my opinion, but you get the point here. Timothy 3:1 verse 5. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, holy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. Have nothing to do with such people. Can anyone honestly say we are not witnessing this in our times right now? Who among you has been kind to anybody recently? Just asking a question. Because we're not seeing the kindness. We have people out there, businesses trying to open, and people reporting them for not following the guidelines. This is not what God intended. This is not helping and loving your fellow man. We've lost all sense of humanity in this world. But there is a great awakening going on, and we're seeing it. There's still a select few that all they rely on is the TV, and everybody knows all you got to do is look up Project Mockingbird. You'll know what that's all about. Once, once you control the press, you control the people. Hitler used that tactic. Many other leaders, dictators throughout the world have used that tactic, still use it today. Let us go to Jeremiah 18:15 through 17. Because my people have forgotten me, they have burned incense to worthless idols, and they have caused themselves to stumble in their ways from the ancient paths, to walk in pathways and not on a highway, to make their land desolate and a perpetual hissing. Everyone who passes by it will be astonished and shake his head. I will scatter them as with an east wind before the enemy. I will show them the back and not the face in the day of their calamity. This is a clear message. The day will come where God will turn his back. There will be calamity. I believe that's what this election is all about. Because If a Democrat wins in November, we will see calamity. Remember, 2016, she wasn't supposed to lose. God stepped in. We should be thankful for this. We got a reprieve, and we got to make good on this reprieve. 60 million babies have been aborted in this country because of our willingness to sit back and only care about ourselves and not about these children. That's another thing that should be on the ballot in November. Our children are on the ballot. And lastly, I will leave you with John 3:3. Very truly, I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they be born again. This can never be more truer. As a kid, I grew up making fun of people that said they were born again. It's actually a phase every one of us goes through but doesn't realize it. As we get baptized, we grow up as children, mischievous, teenagers, mischievous, then get into our 20s and 30s, lose our way, make terrible decisions in our life. Not all of us, some of us. But then comes a moment, I believe, in everybody's life where they get born again and they have the ability to look back and see all the wrongs they've done and have a chance to correct that and get right with God. Some people acknowledge it. Some people don't even know it happens to them, I believe. This is that time. If you don't get right with God right now, you won't have a second chance. You know, God put his shoulder on, or Jesus put his shoulder on Peter and said, "You are the rock I will build my church upon." Most people think that was a structure Jesus was referring to. We, the individual, is the church. We are the church, not a building, not a temple. We are his church. And it has been dismantled to a certain extent. You know, for years, I was raised a Catholic and turned Christian, and most people say, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is the doctrines. Catholics tell you to live your life in a certain way. The Bible also tells you to live your life in a different way. I didn't feel I needed to sit in a confessional and talk to a priest to confess my sins. I could do that with God one on one. I could have that one on one relationship with God. Going to a church was fellowship, was being amongst like minds. But in today's age, the Catholic Church has led us astray. Most people ignore all the scandals that have gone on with the Catholic Church in recent years. And when you ask them about it, they'll tell you, that's not why I go to church. I go to church to be with God. Well, that's their opinion. I have my opinion, and mine's going to differ from that. I can't support something like that. I can't support another individual telling me how to live my life and what's right and what's wrong. The Bible does that all for us. All we got to do is open it and read it. So thank you, everybody that's watched this and tuned in. I hope you'll stay tuned for my next episode. And thank you, and God bless America, and God bless you. Good night.